Now, delegates and leaders from around the world are currently meeting in Washington, D.C. for President Donald Trump's newly announced Board of Peace. Membership to join the board permanently comes with a $1 billion membership fee. So far, more than 25 countries have agreed to join up as Australia continues to review the invitation. Jared Mondschein is the Director of Research at the United States Study Centre and joins us now from Sydney. Jared, morning to you. Who's there? Or actually, probably the more important question is who's not?
A lot of countries are not there. Some of the most significant democratic countries in the world, a lot of the European Union, they're not members, but they are perhaps observers, using a lot of the same terminology of the UN. But who we do have there are perhaps not the most democratic countries. So you have a lot of the Middle East, you have Belarus, you have Indonesia, countries without a stellar democratic records. With that said, I think the main focus at this point, for now at least, is on Gaza. And it's hard to deny that perhaps the non-democratic leaders in the Middle East have made some progress on finding a pathway forward on Gaza, and prior, more conventional pathways have not yielded as much fruit.
What jurisdiction does this Board of Peace have? Let's start with Gaza. We'll go on to the wider world later. But what jurisdiction, what powers does it have to do things in Gaza?
Well, right now, this Board of Peace was really born out of the need to find a pathway forward on Gaza, but there's a lot of questions about that jurisdiction. We have seen prior humanitarian efforts, including led by the Trump administration, to change the status on the ground in Gaza that have since been halted. I think there's aspirations with this Board of Peace that they will get a bunch of donor countries together ultimately and lead major investments into the reconstruction of Gaza. That is the first agenda item, according to reports. It's not the most transparent of entities, but following that is everyone's question. Will this somehow replace or supplant the United Nations? That's still a lot to be determined at this point.
And when people generally invest in something, they expect returns. What's being promised?
I think right now what's been promised is a seat at the table. So if you are to join this body, you have to, your government has to pay $1 billion, and then you can have a voice. And right now there's still reports about what this meeting will look like. According to some reports, everyone will have a speaking role to speak for a few minutes, not dissimilar to the United Nations General Assembly. But then the agenda is still being formed as we speak, it seems like. Right now, what's interesting is that it seems like the word Gaza is not in any of the foundational documents of this Board of Peace, and that instead it is simply a gathering of a bunch of countries, which informally is perhaps focusing on Gaza. But beyond that, the remit and the sort of focus is not really what has been discussed. Instead, what we have is a lot of announcements and a lot of countries. I think that's sort of par for the course with this administration, where there's a lot more announcements or announceables, as they like to call it, and perhaps a less lasting substance that we know the pathway forward on.
Jared, I've read quite a few analysis articles recently that effectively what will be being proposed for Gaza in particular is just a collusion between what Benjamin Netanyahu wants and what Donald Trump wants.
I mean, yes, there's that. You could say that, but you also have Qatar joining this Board of Peace. You also have Turkey involved. You have lots of other entities as well. I mean, I think you could say it's a collusion amongst the members to find a different pathway forward, because we've now had Gaza be a major crisis for decades, sometimes more severe than others, and the conventional means have not really accomplished much. The Biden administration may have negotiated a ceasefire, but it didn't last through the Trump administration. And you could say that perhaps the Trump administration was uniquely able to, through their unconventional means, find a more lasting ceasefire, or perhaps a non-aggression pact, than what the more conventional approaches were able to accomplish.
Is there a Palestinian presence on the board?
Yeah, there seems to be a de facto channel of engaging with the Palestinians. There's still, and it depends on how you define the Palestinians, right? You still have that yellow line dividing the Israeli-controlled part of Gaza and the Hamas-controlled part of Gaza. And according to reports, the Israeli government and the Trump administration are going to give Hamas a deadline for basically disarming, although there are different definitions of what disarming consists of. So there is going to be a Palestinian representation in one way or another, but that is perhaps one of the most sensitive topics, because who represents the Palestinians and who is actually a duly democratically elected representative of the Palestinians, given that they have not had elections in decades at this point.
Just one final thought. The Vatican declined an offer to join the board. The Pope will not be joining, as are, I'm looking at the list of countries, all the European, or most of the European countries either not responded or declined. How do you reckon, Jared, that the European governments are looking at what's going on there in America over the next couple of days?
I think they're looking at it the same way that Australia is looking at it, in that they want to wait and see if this can bear any fruit. Again, the conventional approaches to the Middle East have really not yielded much of results. Instead, there was actually, in the beginning of the first Trump administration, cautious optimism that maybe such an unconventional character could lead to some less than conventional results. And I think you could say there have been unconventional results. I think you can say that the Abraham Accords has been a pathway for more stability in the region. With that said, there's still a lot to be determined. And at this point, I don't think the Trump administration has really outlined what exactly is coming up next.